An F-35 fighter jet screams down the runway. Fifth-generation stealth aircraft, pinnacle of American military technology. $200 million of aerospace engineering launching into combat readiness, symbol of unmatched military dominance. Except for one problem, a problem that makes the entire aircraft vulnerable before it ever faces an enemy. That F-35 contains 920 pounds of rare earth elements, 417 kilograms, neodymium for the magnets and electric motors, samarium for precision-guided weapons, dysprosium for laser systems, 17 different metallic elements essential to every advanced system on that aircraft. And 90% of global production and refining of those elements is controlled by one country, China. So here's the question. If your most advanced weapon system depends on materials 90% controlled by your primary strategic competitor, do you actually control that weapon system? Or does Beijing? This is Finance Through Time. And this is the story of how America armed its greatest rival, not with guns, not with missiles, not with technology transfers, but by surrendering control of the supply chain that makes all of those things possible, by choosing short-term profits over long-term security, by believing globalization would make everyone peaceful, by forgetting that empires rise and fall based on who controls critical resources. And rare earth elements are the most critical resources in the 21st century. Throughout history, global power has followed resource monopolies. 19th century, Britain controlled coal, built the largest empire in human history because coal powered the Industrial Revolution. Britain had it. Everyone needed it. Britain set terms, projection of power through resource dominance. 20th century, America controlled oil, not just domestic production, control over Middle Eastern supplies, control over global pricing through the petrodollar. Anyone who needed oil, which was everyone, dealt with America's system. Military might backed by energy monopoly. 1970s, OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, demonstrated that resource control trumps military power. Oil embargo, American economy seized up, gas lines, inflation, recession. No amount of military superiority could replace the oil flow. Saudis proved that whoever controls what everyone needs controls everyone. 21st century, China understood the lesson, looked at what resources would define the future. Not oil, not coal, rare earth elements, 17 metallic elements most people never heard of, but absolutely essential to every piece of modern technology. Smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, missile guidance systems, radar arrays, fiber optic communications, surgical lasers, everything. Deng Xiaoping saw this coming decades ago. Quote, "The Middle East has oil, China has rare earths." This wasn't casual observation. This was strategic declaration, a statement of intent. China would build the same kind of monopoly on rare earths that OPEC had on oil. And they executed that plan perfectly. Not through military conquest, through patient economic strategy, subsidize domestic production, ignore environmental costs, undercut international competitors, drive them out of business, then control both extraction and, more importantly, refining, because controlling the refining is what gives you actual power. 1980s, Mountain Pass mine in California. American rare earth production, dominant global supplier. America controlled the market, had domestic capacity, self-sufficient. Then China entered the picture. Chinese rare earth mines had advantages. Cheap labor, massive government subsidies, no environmental regulations enforced. They could produce at costs American companies couldn't match. Not because Chinese operations were more efficient, because they externalized costs American companies had to internalize. American companies faced a choice: compete with subsidized Chinese production while following environmental laws and paying market wages, or exit the market. Wall Street made the decision for them. Short-term profitability matters more than long-term strategic control. Cheaper to buy from China than produce domestically. So American companies did exactly that. Mountain Pass closed. American rare earth refining capacity dismantled. Expertise dispersed. Supply chains redirected to China. And this is where it gets catastrophic. Because mining rare earths is one thing. Refining them into usable industrial materials is entirely different. The refining process is technically complex, environmentally destructive, requires specialized facilities and trained personnel, takes years to build capacity. China spent 3 decades building that capacity. America gave it away for slightly lower costs. So now America has a mine. Mountain Pass reopened recently. Can extract rare earth ores from the ground, but cannot process them domestically. Has to ship the ore to China for refining. Then buy back the refined materials at prices China sets, under terms China controls. This is beyond dependency. This is voluntarily placing your industrial capacity under another nation's control. Imagine if during the Cold War, America had to send uranium to the Soviet Union for enrichment before building nuclear weapons. That's the equivalent strategic vulnerability America created with rare earth elements. And it's not just military applications. Every electric vehicle needs rare earth magnets. Every wind turbine, every smartphone, every laptop, every advanced manufacturing process, all dependent on Chinese refining capacity. Tesla can build factories in America, but the motors require magnets that come from China. Apple can assemble iPhones anywhere, but the screens need elements processed in China. The entire green energy transition depends on Chinese rare earth supply. All those electric vehicle mandates, all those renewable energy goals, all predicated on continued access to Chinese processing. If China restricts supply, the transition stops, not slows down, stops completely. China doesn't just control the supply. They've demonstrated willingness to weaponize it, to use rare earth exports as geopolitical leverage, and they've done it repeatedly. 2010, territorial dispute with Japan over islands in the East China Sea. Tensions escalate. China doesn't send warships. Sends export restrictions, halts rare earth shipments to Japan. Japanese electronics industry faces immediate crisis. Production lines threatened. Technology manufacturers scrambling for alternative supplies that don't exist. Japan capitulated, not through military defeat, through supply chain chokepoint. China proved rare earths are a more effective weapon than missiles, because you can shoot down missiles. You can't create rare earth refining capacity overnight. 2019, trade war with the United States, tariffs, technology restrictions, Huawei banned. China's response? Threaten rare earth export restrictions. Not implement, just threaten. The threat alone caused panic. American defense contractors realized their vulnerability. Stock markets reacted. Strategic planning departments scrambled. Because everyone understood what a Chinese export ban would mean. American weapons production stops, F-35 production halts, missile manufacturing ends, submarine construction freezes, not eventually, immediately, within months. Because there are no alternative suppliers, no stockpiles large enough to matter, no way to replace Chinese refining capacity quickly. This is the ultimate strategic leverage. China doesn't need to destroy American military assets, just needs to stop selling the materials necessary to build new ones. Let attrition and obsolescence do the work. America's military advantage erodes not through combat, but through supply denial. And it's not theoretical. It's documented policy. Chinese government white papers explicitly discuss rare earths as strategic resources for national security, as tools for advancing Chinese interests, as leverage in international disputes. They're not hiding this. They're openly stating that rare earth control is an instrument of power projection. So why doesn't America just rebuild domestic refining capacity? Why not restart the supply chains? Why not become independent again? Because it takes 7 to 10 years. Minimum. That's from today. From breaking ground. From getting environmental permits. From training personnel. From building facilities. From establishing the technical expertise that was dispersed decades ago. China spent 30 years building their current capacity. Didn't happen overnight. Happened through sustained investment. Through accepting environmental costs. Through patient strategic planning. Through understanding that some industries are worth subsidizing for national power regardless of immediate profitability. America would need to do the same, but compressed, and while competing with established Chinese facilities that already exist, that already have the expertise, that already control the market, that can undercut any new American facility through subsidies and scale. And here's the worst part. Even if America started today, there's a vulnerability window. 7 to 10 years where American weapons production remains completely dependent on Chinese supply, where any disruption means immediate crisis, where China holds complete leverage over American military capacity. This is unprecedented in American history. Never before has American weapons production depended on a strategic competitor. Never before has the industrial base been this vulnerable. Never before has short-term cost savings created such catastrophic long-term security risk. The defense budget is $850 billion annually, the most expensive military in human history. Yet that entire military depends on Chinese cooperation for the materials necessary to build weapons. The dependence isn't peripheral, it's fundamental, it's existential, and it happened because corporations chose cheaper supply chains over secure ones, because Wall Street prioritized quarterly earnings over strategic independence, because politicians assumed globalization meant everyone would cooperate, because America forgot that economic power ultimately depends on physical control of resources, and rare earth elements are the resources that matter most in the 21st century. China didn't conquer anyone militarily, didn't need to, built monopoly on critical resources, waited for dependency to become total, now holds leverage over every advanced economy, over every military power, over every technology manufacturer, because everyone needs rare earths, and China controls the refining. This is the new warfare. Not missiles, not aircraft carriers, supply chain dominance, control the inputs, control the outputs, control what others can build, control what others can do without firing a shot, without invading territory. Through patient economic positioning and strategic resource monopoly. America is discovering what Britain learned when its coal ran out, what happened when oil embargoes hit, that resource dependence means strategic vulnerability, that globalization works until it doesn't, that assuming others will always sell you critical materials is strategic suicide, that sovereignty requires control of your supply chains, and America surrendered that control for cheaper prices. This is finance through time. We follow the money to show you that wars are won in factories and supply chains before any soldier steps on a battlefield. America boasts an $850 billion military budget, but buys the most critical components from China. Did the West sell its own rope for slightly better profit margins? Or will China somehow lose this monopoly game? Let's discuss in the comments.